The late 18th century. Europe was dominated by monarchies, old traditions, and rigid social hierarchies. Then, in 1789, a storm erupted in France that would shake the very foundations of power across the continent and beyond. The French Revolution was a cataclysmic event, a period of radical social and political upheaval that forever changed France and inspired movements for liberty and equality worldwide. But what ignited this monumental shift? And what were its true, often terrifying, consequences? To understand the revolution, we must first look at France under the Ancien Régime, or Old Order. French society was rigidly divided into three estates. The first estate was the clergy, enjoying significant wealth and privilege, owning vast tracts of land. They paid virtually no taxes. The second estate comprised the nobility, holding hereditary titles, exempt from most taxes, and holding key positions in government and the military. These two estates, representing a tiny fraction of the population, held disproportionate power and wealth. The third estate, by far the largest, encompassed everyone else, from wealthy merchants and lawyers, the bourgeoisie, to artisans, peasants, and laborers. This vast majority bore the brunt of taxation and lacked political representation, despite their vital contributions to the nation's economy. He ruled by divine right, with his power unchecked by any elected body. At the apex of this system sat the absolute monarch, King Louis XVI. His queen, Marie Antoinette, became a symbol of royal extravagance, with lavish spending that fueled public resentment. Bread was the staple of the French diet. France was also facing a severe economic crisis. Decades of costly wars, including significant aid to the American Revolution, had plunged the state into deep debt. Poor harvests in the years leading up to 1789 led to soaring bread prices, causing widespread hunger and desperation among the common people. Meanwhile, the ideas of the Enlightenment were sweeping across Europe. Philosophers like Rousseau, Voltaire, and Montesquieu championed concepts of liberty, equality, and popular sovereignty. These ideas challenged the divine right of kings and the legitimacy of the estate's system, empowering the Third Estate to demand change. Faced with imminent bankruptcy, King Louis XVI was forced to call the Estates General in May 1789. This ancient representative assembly had not met for 175 years. There, they swore the tennis court oath, vowing not to disperse until a new constitution was established. The Third Estate arrived with high hopes, demanding equal representation and voting by head, rather than by a state which would always favor the First and Second Estates. When their demands were rejected, members of the Third Estate, joined by some sympathetic clergy and nobles, took a momentous step. It demonstrated the power of popular uprising. On July 14, 1789, a Parisian mob stormed the Bastille, a medieval fortress used as a prison. On June 17, 1789, they declared themselves the National Assembly, asserting their right to represent the nation. 3 days later, finding their meeting hole-locked, they gathered at a nearby indoor tennis court. On August 4, 1789, they officially abolished feudalism, sweeping away centuries of aristocratic privilege. This act marked a revolutionary challenge to royal authority, signaling the true beginning of the revolution. As political tensions mounted in Paris, fear and rumors spread. But on October 5, 1789, thousands of Parisian women, furious over the high price of bread, marched to Versailles. This symbolic act of rebellion against royal oppression, though the prison held few inmates, sent shockwaves through France and Europe. The storming of the Bastille ignited similar revolts across the countryside in what became known as the Great Fear. Peasants, emboldened by the events in Paris, attacked aristocratic estates, burning feudal records and sometimes even killing landlords. The National Assembly quickly moved to dismantle the Ancien Régime. The king retained some power but was subject to the law. Just weeks later, on August 26th, the Assembly issued the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. Inspired by Enlightenment ideals and the American Declaration of Independence, it proclaimed universal rights, liberty, property, security, and resistance to oppression. This act confirmed the public's suspicions that the king was disloyal to the revolution. It asserted that men are born and remain free and equal in rights, challenging the very foundation of monarchy and privilege. Early defeats, combined with internal paranoia, fueled revolutionary fervor. Despite these radical changes, the royal family remained at Versailles. European monarchies, fearful that revolutionary ideas would spread, began to threaten intervention. The king was suspended, and a new legislative body, the National Convention, was elected. They demanded bread and insisted that the king and queen move to Paris, closer to the people. The royal family was forced to comply. Accused of treason, he was tried by the convention. The revolution continued its reforms. In 1790, the civil constitution of the clergy sought to bring the church under state control. Two main factions emerged: the Girondins, who were more moderate, and the Jacobins, who were radical republicans. Clergy were required to swear an oath of loyalty to the state, and church lands were confiscated and sold to pay off the national debt. This act was deeply divisive, splitting the clergy and many devout Catholics against the revolution, adding a significant religious dimension to the conflict. By 1791, the National Assembly drafted a new constitution, establishing a constitutional monarchy. In April 1793, the Committee of Public Safety was established. However, trust in the monarchy was irrevocably shattered on June 20, 1791, when Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette attempted to flee Paris. Its stated goal was to protect the revolution from its enemies, both foreign and domestic. Their flight to Varennes was foiled, and they were captured and brought back. The failure of the constitutional monarchy led to a more radical phase. Trials were swift, often summary, and executions by guillotine became a daily spectacle. The Declaration of Pillnitz, issued by Austria and Prussia in 1791, warned against harming the French royal family, further inflaming French revolutionaries. Fear gripped Paris, as no one felt safe from accusation. In April 1792, France declared war on Austria and Prussia. He was executed by guillotine the very next day, bringing the reign of terror to an abrupt end. On August 10, 1792, Parisian sans-culotte radical commoners stormed the Tuileries Palace, where the royal family resided. This effectively ended the monarchy. The Committee of Public Safety was dismantled, and the Jacobin clubs were closed. In September 1792, as Prussian armies advanced, fears of counter-revolution led to the September massacres. Mobs stormed prisons, executing thousands of alleged royalists. On September 21, 1792, the National Convention formally abolished the monarchy and declared France a republic. The ultimate fate of Louis XVI became a central debate. On November 9, 1799, 18 Brumaire, he staged a coup d'état. Despite a narrow vote, Louis XVI was found guilty and, on January 21, 1793, he was executed by guillotine, a symbolic and chilling end to the old order. The revolution became increasingly divided. Prominent Jacobin leaders included Jean-Paul Marat, a fiery journalist, Georges Danton, a powerful orator, and Maximilien Robespierre, known as the Incorruptible. Adding to the chaos, a major royalist and Catholic uprising erupted in the Vendée region in western France, posing a serious internal threat. It solidified the concept of the nation-state, where sovereignty resided in the people. To consolidate power and eliminate internal enemies, the radical Jacobins seized control. Initially led by Danton, it soon came under the dominant influence of Maximilien Robespierre. This marked the beginning of the most brutal phase of the Revolution, the Reign of Terror 1793 to 1794. The Revolutionary Tribunal, a special court, was set up to try suspected enemies of the Revolution. Tens of thousands were arrested, and an estimated 17,000 were officially executed. Many more died in prison or during summary killings. Victims ranged from nobles and clergy to former allies, like the Girondins, and even fellow revolutionaries like Danton, who argued for a moderation of the terror. The Committee of Public Safety also attempted to de-Christianize France, promoting the cult of the Supreme Being as a civic religion. Churches were desecrated. Robespierre justified the terror as necessary to achieve a republic of virtue, believing that fear was essential to safeguard liberty. But the execution spiraled out of control. Eventually, the paranoia turned on Robespierre himself. Other members of the committee and the convention feared they would be next. On July 27, 1790, for 9 Thermidor on the revolutionary calendar, Robespierre was overthrown. The fall of Robespierre led to the Thermidorian reaction, a period of conservative backlash. A new government, the Directory, was established in 1795. It was a 5-man executive, supported by a 2-chamber legislature. The Directory was largely ineffective, plagued by corruption, political instability, and economic hardship. It struggled to maintain order amidst continuing internal and external threats. The Directory became increasingly reliant on the military to suppress uprisings and maintain its power. This reliance inadvertently paved the way for the rise of a brilliant young general, Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon achieved stunning military victories in Italy and Egypt, garnering immense popularity and power. Seeing the weakness and unpopularity of the Directory, Napoleon seized his opportunity. This coup effectively ended the French Revolution, ushering in the era of the consulate, with Napoleon as first consul and later emperor. While Napoleon's rule brought stability, it also marked a return to autocratic leadership, albeit under a new framework. Despite its violent excesses, the French Revolution left an unparalleled legacy. It irrevocably ended absolute monarchy in France and severely weakened it across Europe. It championed the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, inspiring nationalist movements and democratic reforms worldwide. The Declaration of the Rights of Man became a blueprint for human rights declarations globally. Its influence spread through the Napoleonic Wars, impacting political thought and igniting revolutions in Latin America and the European revolutions of 1848. The French Revolution remains one of history's most complex and controversial events, a powerful testament to both the inspiring ideals of freedom and the terrifying dangers of unchecked radicalism. It forever altered the course of history, demonstrating that ordinary people could overthrow oppressive regimes, profoundly shaping the modern political landscape.